Welcome to our midweek message. I'm Pastor Reed here at First Baptist Church of Olathe. I'm excited to share what God's placed on my heart for this week. And I want to begin by telling a little bit of a story. My brother and I, we grew up in a place called Eugene, Oregon, and our grandparents lived in Caldwell, Idaho. And it was about a 9-hour journey that took you up over the Cascade Mountains, through the high desert, up over some more mountains, and then into Idaho. And we decided to take a trip one summer to go and pick my grandmother up in my car and bring her back to my mom's house to hang out for a while. And so we set out on this journey together. It was one of very few handfuls of road trips that we had the opportunity to take. And we made it up over the Cascades, and we were driving through the high desert. And just as we were getting outside of a town called Baker City, the car broke down. We coasted downhill, and then we made it back up about halfway up the next mountain, or the next hill, and we got out, and we were like, there's nobody here. We're gonna die here. It was hot. It felt hopeless. It was not a time that we were excited to be alive. And in fact, we thought perhaps we weren't gonna be alive much longer, because on that stretch of highway, people don't come by all that often. And so we freaked out. And sometimes there are times like this in our lives where it feels like we are broken down in the middle of the desert and life feels hopeless. Perhaps it's when we've lost a job or relationships aren't going well. Maybe you feel like people are attacking you. Maybe your health has not been good. We all go through these moments that are kind of like being stuck in the desert. One of the things that we talked about on Sunday as we discussed our second core value of worship was that worship isn't just a thing that we do as we gather together, but it's also a state of our hearts, our minds, as we go about life. We looked at Romans 12:1-2, which says, I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. You know, this is interesting because it says that our spiritual act of worship is to give ourselves heart, mind, body over to God, that he would work in us. And this working in us is being done by the Spirit as we're renewed in our minds, that we might be able to know him, rather than being conformed to the image of this world. And oftentimes when we think about being conformed to this world, we think about, perhaps sinful things like lust and greed and all of that. But perhaps hopelessness is also a way that we are conformed to this world. That hopelessness is what we experience when we lose sight of the one who has given us hope. And perhaps that's really what's at stake in the world, is whether or not we can live with hope, knowing and loving and serving God, or we live without hope. Psalm 63 says this, "O God, you are my God. Earnestly I seek you. My soul thirsts for you, my flesh faints for you, as in a dry and weary land where there is no water. So I have looked upon you in the sanctuary, beholding your power and glory, because your steadfast love is better than life. My lips will praise you. So I will bless you as long as I live. In your name I will lift up my hands. My soul will be satisfied as with fat and rich food, and my mouth will praise you with joyful lips when I remember you upon my bed and meditate on you in the watches of the night. For you have been my help, and in the shadow of your wings will I sing for joy. My soul clings to you. Your right hand upholds me. But those who seek to destroy my life shall go down into the depths of the earth. They shall be given over to the power of the sword. They shall be a portion for jackals. But the king shall rejoice in God. All who swear by him shall exalt, for the mouths of liars will be stopped. This psalm is like, why are you reading this, Pastor Reed? Well, this psalm was written by David as he was in the midst of the desert, running for his life, being chased down by Saul's men. And what we have here is we have David, in the midst of his struggle, raise up this beautiful psalm of trust, of praise, of hope. And I think what we can take from David here is this, is that he could have given into the hopelessness of his situation. He could have turned violent and fought Saul. He could have killed Saul even when he had the chance. He could have turned frantic and run far away. But what we see here is somebody who was not conformed to this world, who did not allow himself to live with hopelessness, but held on to God and lived with hope, even in the midst of the desert. And so what I want to say to us is that worship isn't just what we do when we gather, but worship is how we live in all circumstances of life, laying ourselves before God, giving ourselves over to him, allowing him to be at the center of our thoughts, the center of our heart, the center of our lives, regardless of whether we are in good times or in bad. That in those things, he would transform us. Be blessed and be a blessing.